Well, hello, everyone. Welcome back to the High Vibe Home podcast. I'm sitting here with a beautiful guest. We have Karin Luis with us on the show today. Hello, beautiful. How are you?
Hi, I am doing great. We were talking about how we coordinated and didn't even mean to, of course. So I'm doing
We're
fabulous.
already like vibing to each other. We're wearing the coral, which I rarely wear coral, but I love it. So we are synced up today, and that
Perfect.
always is a good sign, right?
Always synchronicities are perfect alignment. Yep.
Yeah, well, as I mentioned, Karin is an incredible heart-centered woman. I just feel you already. I'm like, we got this coral vibe. It's aligned. But more importantly, she's a transformational coach and speaker, and she really supports individuals in finding freedom and power on their soul's pathway by firing up alignment, authenticity, and passion. So we're really excited to have you on the show. We're going to be diving into a topic that, I think as we record this, there's so much. You just said it, like chaos and what was it?
Yep.
Chaos and
Chaos and peace. We're just
chaos
always
and peace.
trying to find balance between chaos and peace. I think we were saying how we both,
Exactly.
yeah, have equal, I don't know, I'm having equal parts of both right now. So I'm right here with you,
Yeah, and it's
everybody.
it's like actually such a good mirror representation for the actual home environment that we live in, right? Sometimes it's
Mhm.
perfectly peaceful and other times it's chaotic. And I think that's a good
Yeah.
mirror for how we are and what's going on in the world. So we thought we'd talk a little bit about relationships and healing and what that really looks like because Karen has a lot of insight on how to help navigate those sort of difficult times. And we want to blend it in with, of course, a little bit of magic in your space and how that can support you. So before we get into that topic, Karen, I want you to just, or Karen, there we go. I
It's
was
all
going
right.
to say it. I
It's
knew it
okay.
would happen. So I would love for you to share a little bit about your journey. What got you started on this path? Give us the whole
Yeah.
rundown.
Oh, well, we don't have time for the whole rundown, but I will give you
Okay, a short, brief
a
one.
simplified. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so I started my life thinking I was going to be a teacher, elementary school teacher, and that's where my schooling started. And I ended up getting married like right out of college, literally like a couple months after college. I just turned 22, and now I'm 50-ish, just for a point of reference. So I've got a lot of life that I've lived since then. And I
Amazing.
thought that I was
Amazing.
gonna, oh yeah, I didn't go from point A to point B. There was like a shit ton of letters in between, and life totally surprised me. But I do love where I am. But that's where I started, and then ended up. My husband at the time was a professional baseball player, and at the time he wasn't when we got married, but he became a professional baseball player, and so I became a baseball wife, and I did that for about a decade, and then that marriage kind of imploded very publicly after a bunch of infidelity on his side, and
Oh,
it had me. I mean, it's funny because I'm summarizing a decade of life in like 5 sentences, but to say that I was dropped to my knees and had to reorganize my life is an understatement. Like my entire identity shattered, everything I'd planned for myself shattered. I was like, what the hell? Like I was living this Christian, life, and I was teaching Bible studies, and I was raised by a pastor, and I was doing all the things. I was showing up at the ballpark. I was looking cute. I'd had my hair perfect. I had all the outfits, and I was supporting him and cheering all the things, and it fell apart. And he ended up leaving me for an exotic dancer, just to add some little spice to the story, and had a baby two
wow.
months after that. So,
Wow.
um, and I was also struggling with infertility. So there's just a complexity, right? So talk about chaos. I went through this emotional chaos, and I wanted to find that peace. And I went through years of just trying to put myself back together again, and depression. And I couldn't go back and work in the field that I thought I wanted to work in. And after much therapy and much prayer and all the things,
Mm.
first I started volunteering, and then my therapist one day was like, "You're so good at this and you're actually helping everybody. Why don't you become a counselor?" And it had never even occurred to me. And I was like, "Oh, okay." And so I started researching. And long story short, I went back to school, got my master's, and then I loved it so much and was just so much in alignment with what I was finding out and just the art of study. And then I found this whole side of me that didn't exist, in my 20s, which was one that was very much into academia and research and psychology and all of this stuff. So when I got my doctorate, like all these new pockets of myself started opening and unfolding. And I
Wow.
started having all these awakenings around culture and identity and all of this stuff. So I had my first kind of awakening, totally unexpected, not planned. All my friends that were getting their like masters out of college, I was like, yeah, y'all have fun. I'm gonna go get married. I don't know why y'all are adding more school because it's kind of unnecessary. Like
Yeah.
it's just funny because then there I was.
Yep.
And so I earned my PhD. It took me 10 years because in the middle of that, I actually got remarried again and ended up having 3 kids within a 3-year period, and I had twins and then one. And there was just a host of issues that came with that, but it's all relevant to my story. So here I was, like this kind of, I was calling myself a relationship expert and had the PhD. I was a licensed therapist. And what I wasn't telling the world was that my second marriage was not in alignment with me, and it was falling apart on the inside. And here I had 3 kids. My third one was medically fragile. I was doing it all by myself. I was literally becoming a shell of myself. I started experiencing a lot of the same experiences I had in my first marriage. I'd attracted a very similar energy. Yep. And now that I know about law of attraction, I can explain it all. At the time, I was like, oh my God, what is happening? And again, this is another like about 8 years. And I did not want to get divorced again because I did not want to go through the shame. I mean, oh my God, like I was a Christian and I was teaching and I was a PhD and I was like a professor at the university. Like I thought that I was totally going to dismantle my credibility. And, you know, one of the things I work on most with women is shame and guilt. Those are the 2 strongest emotions that we carry. And so I started carrying the shame and the guilt so strongly. And they kept me in that marriage in a very, very unhealthy, toxic situation. Without giving the details, I eventually, one day, this book on victim consciousness like fell off the shelf. And so here's where it gets good. I started looking at this book. I don't even know how it came to me. It's up on my shelf still. And I started realizing, oh my God, I'm in charge of my vibration. What is that? And this is in 2014. And I'm like, oh my God, like I'm attracting victim experiences into my life through my vibration and my expectation. Oh my God, I aligned with somebody that does that too. This is playing out. And so I started realizing energy. I started understanding energy. Well, then there were multiple deaths in the family, and not to get super dark, but I'll just explain this in a couple of sentences. Somebody very close to me passed away, sent me into a supersonic spiritual awakening. She actually took her life, and I found her, and she did not leave the planet. So I ended up having this very supernatural, oh my God, where does this fit into my Christian religion? What the
Right.
hell is happening? And again, my entire world just exploded in the scariest and most awesome way possible, right? Spiritual awakenings are like not for the weak either, right?
Nope, definitely
So
not.
so I decided after many years of conflict in my own heart to finally leave that marriage with my children. And I mean, we share custody now, but it was another destruction of my identity, right? Because then there I was again. But what was different this time was then I started studying spirituality, and so now this is why I am where I am now. So what happened in that portal was that I started looking into mystical things. I started training under a medium, and I realized that I can communicate with the other side because this person, my loved one who didn't leave, I started getting all this communication, right? So I was like, and my family. So anyway, it was this whole opening of being a channel and understanding energy. And so I just dove headfirst into spiritual practice and spiritual study. And so it's been almost 10 years now of doing that. And in that, I actually let my licensure go. I was a licensed psychotherapist, and like what I was leaning into, like kind of didn't really align with that system anymore. So I started calling myself a life coach, which I don't know. I'm more so now I'm like, well, maybe
Yeah.
I'm a transfer. Like, I'm like, I'm really a transformationalist. Like I hold a
Yeah.
PhD, but so there's that
It's hard
funny,
to put
like,
labels on
it's so
who we
hard.
are, you know? It puts
It's
us in a
so hard.
box when we're so multidimensional.
Yes. And
Mhm.
there's so many coaches now, and not to discredit any of that, because it's amazing. Like we all have these specialties. So, I'm still navigating it. It's still a journey, but what I've found is that at the end of the day, it became about my self-love. I've been listening to your podcast just so much, and I lined up with so much about a lot of what happens in spiritual awakening.
Mm.
And when people reorganize after divorce or breakup, is reorganizing the home space. And so that was part of that waking up and reclaiming. I mean, if you could see my dining room right now. So part of what I started doing is after that marriage ended, he was very rigid. He didn't like how, like, and I think you and I have a similar, I mean, we're a unique person, but like, I love your tattoo. Like I'm always like, I'm pretty big and bad and bold. And like, I
Yeah,
don't like to follow up the
we're
rules. Yeah.
not in a box. That's for
No.
sure.
And
Yeah.
yeah. And if you're with somebody, like it drove him really crazy.
Yeah.
Like I had
Yeah.
tattoos and all that. And so once when that marriage ended, I ended up it's like everything that I wasn't allowed to be, I started creating in my home. Like
Mhm.
my dining room paper, I just put it up. It has tigers, puffins, and peacocks on it. It's a blend of coral, teal, and green. And my dining room chairs are burnt out turquoise velvet with orange trim. I mean, you either, so it's kind of like my barometer of who's my people. And so when people walk in the room, they either go, what the hell is happening in that room? Or they're like, oh my God, I love this room. And it literally, it's like, I know you're my people when you're like, this is awesome. So
Yeah,
it's,
that's
yeah, it was
awesome.
part of the awakening. But yeah, so now I love what I do. So most of my clients tend to be women that have had to reinvent, because I kind of am an expert in it because I've had to do it so many times. And I have this very gentle but accelerated framework that I've developed, that I do, in programs and retreats and working with people around helping you. At the end of the day, it's about returning to self-love, returning to your intuition and your power, and
Mhm.
sourcing from within instead of going outside of you. So that's the long and the short of it, but that's my passion, because that was the answer for me.
Wow, it sounds like I was taking a couple deep breaths there. I'm sure you guys were listening as well through that story, because it's like what I hear is like, okay, let's wake her up. Oh, she didn't get it the first time. Let's wake her up.
Oh yeah.
Let's throw her another one. And that's
Yeah.
what I believe. It's like, it's hard to describe what it is: higher self, God, goddess, deity, the
Yeah.
creator, spirit. But my best understanding is there's a version of us that is up there,
Yep.
around us, within us, in everything. And it's like nudging at us. It's always speaking to
Mm-hmm.
us. It's, like I said, I got to this studio and there was 444 right next door. And there's always these little messages. And it's when we're awake enough to listen and pay attention
Yeah.
is when we can trust that we're being guided. And now I'm covered in chills. It's like you
Totally.
being on that path, having a similar experience in a same pattern, repeating over and over. And until we really get shook up, and sometimes it takes these catalytic moments to
Yeah.
realize, wait, I've been asleep. Like I've just been walking the same path everybody else is told to walk. I'm just
Yeah.
trying to fit in.
Yep.
And one of the things I love that
100%.
you said is that you found yourself like kind of through the home and allowing yourself to be expressed in your home. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that that's a huge, it's an importance in our life, because when we're not feeling aligned with who we are and we look around our space and nothing feels like us, like I'm even
Yeah.
at this podcasting recording studio. I'm not in my home for the first time. I started trying this out and I brought my crystals. I've got a tapestry on the table that, like, all those things
Aw.
are who I am. Right. And it's important
Yeah.
because we are so disconnected oftentimes in the world, whether because we live in a box, right? We
Yeah.
don't necessarily live like with nature or walking around being on the earth. And I think that bringing all of those components of yourself are like a reawakening and an allowance for you to like find yourself and transform through your space, which is really cool. It's kind of a new way to look at it.
It's so, it is the elements of the earth. I will say, like, this shamanic energy has been running through me since all this happened. And
Right, yeah.
my main guide is Native American, and I've got I love to do journeying, and that has been such. And I was looking at your retreat information, it's so exciting. I'm just like, yes, because it's like we've lost it so much. And even before we came on, I went out back and walked around barefoot and was watering my garden, and I it's like it's the simplest thing, and we just forget. And it's like, literally go walk in the forest, and if you can't find a forest, just sit and envision trees or look out your window, go hold some leaves between your hands, and there's so much, like, I've got a book coming through me right now called Force of Nature, and it dropped on me. I thought it was going to be a program, and I was just telling you I had a shake up in my own work yesterday and today, and I thought I was going to be teaching this program called Force of Nature, and yesterday everything shifted, and Spirit literally was like, I was in the middle of launch, and Spirit was like, we actually want you to write this book first, and then we want you to come back. So I'm like, okay. But it's like, oh my God, and all these earth elements came in, which I know
Yeah.
ties into what you do. And they're like, your first chapter is I am air, then it's I am water, and it's like, and it
Mhm.
ties to the emotional healing and the emotional release. And it's all about what you're letting go, what you're allowing in, what you're letting go. And this work is just, I've got chill bumps now too. The work is so important because, the natural rhythm, whether you're looking at love or money, joy, whatever it is, right now I'm a place in my life where I realize, like, I'm single and, like, I'm really ready for partnership. And so what I've sat and done, I do these beautiful meditations, and I'm like, I've just let Spirit take my hands and work on my energy field. And I started the other day in a meditation. It's like, I could feel myself just like opening. I have my eyes closed and I just let my hand go. And I just start like opening portals around me. And what spirit
Yeah.
showed me was, it was like, just like the natural flow of the earth, like with the rain and precipitation, right? It goes in and it comes up. They're like, it is time for you to start receiving, right? Divine feminine, what you've given for the past 25 years, and open those portals back, because that is the natural movement. The natural state of energy is movement, right? So if you are sending energy into the earth, all the love, all the things that we do, right? We caretake everybody. And if you're not allowing that and receiving that in your divine feminine to come back in, you're not actually in agreement with the natural flow. And like, we've been taught not to let it in.
Yes.
But through all of these things, like nature is showing us on a day, I get like, I know I'm like channeling right now, when nature is showing us constantly like that, and we just aren't taught that. We're taught, no, you give until you're depleted, right? Which is the state most of us
Yep.
find ourselves in as women.
Yeah.
And the natural flow is, you're supposed to sit back and receive, sister. Like, it is part of your actually service to the earth, not only to yourself. And if you can click into that, like, everything changes. So that's what I'm personally going through right now. That's coming through really strong. Someone needs to hear that today.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like there is actually this resurgence happening
Totally.
again. Like there's multiple stages to this awakening process. There's multiple stages to like each path that we've chosen. But right now, the feminine rising, the witch, the wise women, the medicine women, the shamans, like all of that
Yeah.
feels really alive right now.
Yes.
And I feel
100%.
like it has a lot to do with the chaos in the world. A lot of us have gone through several awakenings at this point now. So we're like holding this bridge
Yeah.
between these worlds to help facilitate more, but it's happening way quicker than like for
Yep.
me, it was like 2012 was my start. And then it was like a slow, sludgy process. And I feel like now I see people and I'm like, wow, you just like jumped right in. You know, you're just like all in creating these amazing art pieces. And suddenly, like divorce, breakups, a lot of divorce this year, a
Yep.
lot of breakups this year, a lot of challenges in relationship, myself included. And I feel like it has a lot to do with this like separation, you know, that is
Mhm.
moving away from the old world and bridging in this new.
I mean, you are, yes. I mean, chill bumps all over. It's, we are, what is happening right now is, it's the healing of the divine feminine, the divine masculine, and all of that. And I'm trying, and I work on understanding this myself, but it's, all of those false paradigms that have caused both genders so much pain. I shouldn't say genders, it's both polarities. And we both have both, right, within us. And so there's been so much pain, even the masculine too, it's both. But this divine feminine, because there's been that disempowerment, the throat chakra is waking up. And right now you can say fuck, I think, on not regular TV. Like, it's kind of like that throat chakra. And by the way, if that
It's
doesn't trigger you,
out.
like, it's
Yeah.
very activating for your
Yeah.
throat chakra. And and I agree, like, it's to the point where I have to fight being jealous based on what you just said, as far as the acceleration being so fast right now, because I'm like, damn it, that took me like a decade.
Right.
How did you get
Yeah.
that in like 1 month? And
Yeah.
I'm watching, 20 something year olds, or even
Totally.
teens, like, over these
Yep.
channels. And but at the same time, I'm celebrating it. And it's like, well, timing is always perfect. And I wouldn't be who I am had I not gone through all of it the way I had. But I agree, I mean, they've shown that time has sped up, like, we know this. And there is an accelerated, I mean, the frequency of the earth scientifically has changed. Schumann's resonance is showing that, like,
Mhm.
there is a speeding up. So yes, and the beautiful thing about it, and it's part of why I don't practice traditional psychotherapy anymore, because I'm really, I have to be careful when I say this, but diagnoses and all this pain and anxiety that we hold and call our own, like, things have shifted. And in that new frequency and that new energy, you actually have the capability of healing yourself on a very fast track plate. Like,
Mhm.
I mean, pain is inevitable, but suffering is a choice. And through these things, these ideas that you're giving out on a daily basis to your people, and that I give out, like, it's like, you literally can implement some of these things, do some of your energy work, and I'm not talking about if you're in deep trauma, but
Right.
you do not have to stick to the old paradigm that you need to be in therapy for years and years, unless you feel like you're doing it serves you, which is awesome.
Mhm.
But you can literally shift things in a moment, and things can be different for you. We were just taught differently. And
Yeah.
so that acceleration is very real. It's a matter of what we believe to be true. And I mean, it's happened for me when I've worked with shamans over the past several years. I mean, I've done, and I know you do a lot of that, the work too, the witchy. I mean, I've definitely been burned at the stake in another life and
Oh
all the
yeah.
stuff. Like, I never like things on my throat still. It's like,
Yep.
I get even turtlenecks, like, I can't even wear, um, but, you know, in all that ancestral stuff, I've passed so much through myself this year, and I wouldn't have been ready before, but I celebrate so much, like the frequency of what people are getting, that are raising their hands, that are coming into it, that are finding it, and then that are spreading that light, and that collective awakening that we're going through. And then the awakening of the divine feminine. It is changing in record time. And I just can't wait to see what's coming as this healing
Mm.
continues. But I'm sorry, what you said is totally spot on. I'm in
Yeah,
100%
it's,
aligned.
I mean, and also just coming back to the healing of that divine masculine, divine feminine, it's really allowing us to reprogram a lot of our like internal home, and that's what
Yeah.
is so imperative when it comes to it's like I look at our systems like a computer. We have these operating systems, we've got a program, we've got these things that we've taken on from our parents, relatives, society, sisters, brothers, the whole thing. And right now, even within that framework of the relationship, right,
Yeah.
bringing in that divine masculine, divine feminine type dynamics, we are seeing how a lot of those don't actually fit. And the story
Yeah.
of the patterns that we're continuously showing up with in relationship are not serving what is wanting to come through in this new world or this new way of relating and having emotions and communicating. So it's a very heavy time. I think the more I talk to other women, brothers,
Oh
sisters,
my gosh.
everybody's
Yeah.
like, oh my God, this year has been wild, like challenging. Like I said, a lot of breakups, a lot of divorce. And on that subject, one of the things I find that's so healing is to have a space that allows us to heal. And I believe so
Yeah.
wholeheartedly in homes that heal because our root chakra is our home, and we as mystics healers, I think we often forget the importance of that chakra and of our home because it's like so far removed from what we think is important, right?
Yeah.
And I've seen
Hmm.
a lot of struggle in that space. So I'd love to get your input on kind of circling back to that chapter in your life when you were going through these breakups and these divorce and now like seeing how you've really transitioned into your space. It feels like how do you feel like
Yeah.
this space has really supported you in becoming who you are during those times?
Well, I think one of the things to point out to you is the reflection of alignment within relationship, and kind of knowing, like going into it, like my intuition had kind of told me in my second marriage, like we weren't in alignment with what we really wanted in spaces. So that's like a hindsight kind of thing to reflect. Like there were signs there that he was not going to like the way I wanted to decorate, and that there was just a mismatch. He's kind of a hoarder, and you know, I just want to say, be really pay attention to your intuition when it comes to it. Cause like you said, we kind of forget that and dismiss it. Like I did, like I wasn't putting that much important. I didn't realize, I didn't know about energy back then. And so I didn't realize the importance were now. Like that's why I say like my dining room chairs with the cutout teal and orange, like that it really is a filter for me. Because I mean, it's
Yeah.
funny because it's one guy that I dated walked in and literally the first thing he said was, "What the hell is going on with those chairs?" And I was like, damn it. Because he was so hot, I was like,
Yeah.
oh, this is not going to work.
Yeah.
Um, so pay attention to your intuition around, like, it is super important. Because if you are cloaking who you are and change. And I'm not to say that you don't give and take. Of course you do. And if he likes to keep this piece of furniture, you find a way, and that's what love does. But if you have to change who you are in your environment, like pay attention to that when you're deciding who to be in union with. Because like as you were saying, last thing I'll say about all the breakups that are happening is the reason they're happening is because one of the first stages of healing is whatever needs to be healed is going to come to the surface. And
Mhm.
that's why we're going through all this pain right now. But the beautiful part is it's the healing journey. So as we repair and get past all that, so that's why it's coming. So you're going to get through it, and it may mean you're out of alignment, and that then you have a separation or a breakup. And the space then, it's like I brought over. So I went through a whole like Marie Kondo kind of thing, where I have a girl that came in and we literally picked up every piece of whatever. Does this bring you joy? Does this bring you joy? So there was a lot of that, because I went from a really big house to a much smaller house where I am now with my kids. So the decluttering, and of course it's still a journey for me. If you could look around, I've got 3 teenagers now.
Always a
So
journey.
it's, yeah. I mean, there are,
Even in tiny spaces, it's like
yeah,
it's almost harder. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm doing taxes over here, and there's like, the basketballs and Uggs and there's a board on the ground. Anyway, but I continuously ask myself that. And one of the things that I've actually, everyone that I've worked with that's going through a divorce, one of the first things I have them do is create a happy wall. And because this is what helped me. And you can get pictures printed, and this is so simple, but it literally has made the biggest difference for me. I've done it twice now. It's like when you go through that breakup, like all those old pictures, there's always a trigger, right? So I wouldn't necessarily throw them all away until you're ready to. Like emotionally, I would just put them in a box. But start when you're living your new life and you're finding moments of happiness, even if it's just you and your dog on a hike. Take those photos, and like there's Mixed Tiles does these cool, you can just take the stickers off the back and put them on the wall, and they're already like in a square. And so I literally just bought like 50 of them over time. And so whenever I walked in that hallway, and it may not have been the most like design friendly thing, but it's like there were new pictures of me being happy, and me in my new life, and me with my friends now. And that was really pivotal in my space, right? So besides like the traditional, like say excuse me, smudging and saging, and I did all of the energy clearing and all of that, really inserting elements that bring you so much joy that are specific to you, is super important. I mean, you can see, those of you that see on video, like I've got, like there's a whole thing of feathers back here behind me. So feathers are my spirit sign. So when I
Same.
walk, specifically
I'm
the
always
hawk feather.
like,
Don't you have it? Do you have a feather tattoo? I think I saw that in one of
I
your.
have, it's not a feather, but
Oh,
it's funny you say that because I'm turning in one of my tattoos into a dream catcher with feathers because,
that's awesome.
yeah, it's not one of my favorites. So I want to transform it.
Well, and
But
well,
yeah,
so
yeah,
there's life, right? So and it's like there's also like a harvested skull up here on above my fireplace here, but you know that brings me so much joy. I walk in my office, and like on video you can see it there. Like
yeah,
I'm like, fuck yeah, I feel powerful.
yeah.
My ex-husband would never let me put that up. But and it's color too. So whether, and
Mhm.
whatever your color palette is, like it has to bring you joy. And you give a lot of advice about the bedroom. Like I would say, when you go through the breakup, those elements that you really teach people about what to bring in the bedroom, I would start in the bedroom and in the kitchen. Those are my two areas, because when you're alone, you're making food just for yourself then, and it can be really triggering, because the kitchen tends to be another place besides the bedroom where you were in union. Maybe you cooked together, or
Yeah.
you ate together. So that was a
Such
really
a
key
good point.
place. Like a new set of dishes, very simple, literally changed everything for that space for me.
Mm.
So
And a
yeah, I
new
mean, I couldn't get,
bed,
yeah,
like don't sleep in the same bed of your ex
yeah,
partner and you. That's kind of a no brainer. But people do, I mean, it's beds are quite expensive, but
yeah,
it's the one place I always say invest in yourself because you're sleeping on it every night. You need that rest and also that energy coming in from another relationship or it's there, it's imprinted. Your energy becomes your space. So when you're going through a divorce, breakup, changing lifestyles in that way, it's so important to have a bedroom that it actually is your own energy. That's
it is.
so
It is.
important.
And they have, okay, so mattresses traditionally are, I know they're expensive, but I got the ones that came rolled up.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
just dropping
That's
this
like
in
a
here.
new
It
thing
wasn't
now.
that expensive. It was like under $1,000. It was like in the
Yeah.
hundreds. And I'm
Yeah.
shocked. Like everybody loves, and I have one in my guest room too. I'm just saying it doesn't have to be that
Yeah.
expensive.
It
I mean,
doesn't have to be. I
it's
think your
awesome.
energy is more important at the end of the day. If you can, if you can do that and it's within your means, obviously your energy is more valuable than spending a couple $100s to or try to keep that bed or keep that dresser or keep like it's hard to let go of things. I totally understand that. Just going through that myself. But at the same
Yeah.
time, it's like what it comes down to is who you want to be without that person in your life, maybe who you are at your core when you weren't with that person. Because a lot of times in relationships, and I think as women, we struggle with this, is we lose ourselves to some degree. Like
Yeah.
there's just an
Yeah.
initial, I'm
Yeah.
going to give you everything, my heart, my
Yeah.
soul, my time, my presence, my energy, everything so that I forget who I am. Like it's
Yeah.
that old program. And that's what we're working
Yeah.
through healing right now, right? As women. Yes, I
Me, I'm
feel
raising my
so.
hand. I'm like, yep,
Yeah,
did it and did it
exactly.
again. And it's
So
very
that
true. And then the recreation. That's why this recreation is so important, because very often, with the way I look at it from psychology is it's like we know the inner work is going to be a little bit. Well, again, it can take a short amount of time, but initially out of the gate, because you're so raw, it's going to take more time because there's an unfolding of all the layers. But what can be very immediate is what you can control. So that's why a lot of women will redo their hair, they'll get a tattoo. I've done both. Get a dog, and change your environment. And so those are things that you can, if you are in a heartbreak right now, that is something you can control. And it's such an easy button. And the great thing is we have so many things available now that are not expensive. And it's a matter of literally, even if it's something like you were saying, to let go of things, like that's a big one, especially if you were married,
Mhm,
that you acquire things, maybe even expensive things. And
mhm.
so for me, that was a lot of the struggle. It was like, God, but this was like an antique, or like, this, it costs money. But the point was, and we just kept returning to that, is it bringing you joy when you walk by it? Like, can this be something that you can renew, right? That you can sage down, maybe do a ceremony around it and recreate as yours, which is totally possible. Like,
Yeah,
what you can create whatever you want. You can
yeah,
repaint it, whatever. But holding on to something just because it costs so much money, even though every time you walk by it, your stomach hurts, is not going to serve you.
right.
And you can bless those things, right? And bless them for whoever they serve next. So yeah, it's a process.
It is. And I want to sort of like pull out that piece that you said about really going through the things, but like being able to also not necessarily let go of it, but clear it, make it your own energy, because that is actually really something that I think we don't often look at is when you go through a chapter where you're in transition, maybe you even are, I mean, we're speaking to breakups and divorce here, but maybe it's a different transition. You lost a loved one, there's a lot of big pivotal moments in life, and that's what happens.
Um,
But you can actually go through re-energizing everything in your space. And I
yeah,
don't really talk about that a lot actually, so I wanted to bring that out is maybe it's not getting rid of everything. Maybe it's just actually taking time to reprogram the things around your space. And but what does that look like? I mean, it could look like saging, it could look like washing it, getting a deep cleaning, it could look like sitting on it, meditating, putting energy towards it. It really, a lot of feng shui I talk about too is intuitive. There's a lot of us here that are
yeah.
pretty well versed in that strength of our intuition and
Hmm.
you'll know what to do. Like you have
Hmm.
that within yourself to be able to pick up something and know whether it's really going to be able to become your energy or if it's really time to say goodbye,
Mm,
and I love
I love
having
that.
mediums in there, like somebody that came in for you to remind you to say like, does it spark joy? And I think that's really important to have people who can help you move through those emotions because we have a lot of emotional attachments to things. That's how
Oh yeah.
everything becomes our energy, right? But when we are able to have somebody else come in, they don't have, I mean, I worked with hoarders and did like organization and getting rid of things and we don't have the ability to connect to it on that level emotionally, right? So
Mm.
it's so interesting that we do that in life, I think too, that we have
Yeah.
this thing like, okay, that's that crystal I got from,
Yeah.
that thing and that reminds me of that and but it's how we as humans relate to our external environment.
Yeah,
So,
and I think a lot of that is specific to women with the because men, and this is just a generalization, but
mm,
men tend to there's a very different energy around that. We tend to be very emotional around it, especially with homes.
yeah.
And I was just talking about this yesterday. Like a move for a man, now of course I'm generalizing. Men that are really in touch with their feminine can have a very different experience, and you may not, but I'm just saying, typically speaking, I did a lot of gender studies, and I'm fascinated by it. And anthropologically, women, we have more of the emotional side, right? So a move specifically is very emotional. And for a man, they can get like, I mean, God, just had someone break up. Of one of my best friends just had a big breakup, and she's like, how was he able to move out? And we had this a 2 hour talk last night about this compartmentalizing
Mm,
talent that they have, and it can be whether that serves them long term or not. The jury's out on that, but my last move out of the home that I was married in, especially if you've built, because we built the house, and it's, or even if you're in an apartment, paint a wall and it was just whatever it was, like you formed that. And so your energy is in that space.
yeah.
And so me letting go of that home it was like another divorce. It was like another part of it was almost harder for me than the divorce from that man, because that I put so much love, we had added onto a house, and I had 3 kids there, and I built the house around having the 3 kids and the playroom and the thing. And like, it would literally was designed around my life, and I had to let it go. And when I talk about, like, I would walk around doing lives and they're like bawling my head off, just letting people know they're not alone if they're going through it. So if you're going through that, you're normal. And just, I think the thing is, the way that I would describe it is, it's like, it's a part of your family. I very much felt like, and this doesn't go for every single place you live in, but if it is, like, know that you're not alone. And that's a beautiful, it says a lot about you, because it means that you love deeply. You infuse your energy into the home, especially if you have children, or if you, when you love on your spaces, your energy is in the paint, your words, your emotion are in the paint and in the furniture, in the fabrics, like, you're infused in there. And so when you change spaces, a lot of people get left in the home, and there's a whole, you can shift the energy in there too. I had a lot of that. I brought in some witchy people into my last house, because I stayed for a little while, girl. I had that stuff cleared. I mean, we burned shit in every room. I mean, there was so much going on, because the energy that he left behind was like, so, like, I wouldn't say anything, and like my like little witchy friends would come over, and I wouldn't say little, they were very powerful, and they would walk into his space. They'd be like, whoa, what happened here? I'm like, yep.
That's
Start to
it.
spin out. Yeah. They're
Yeah.
like, oh my God, it's so thick. And we
Yeah.
burn like 20 candles and leave salt, all the things. And the beautiful part about it is, I will say, when you're doing that, there's an empowerment piece, whether it's a piece of furniture, a space that you're revamping, or a isn't that weird, the word revamp, kind of like vampires in there, that's funny. um or or a space that you're claiming as your own. There is this beautiful sense of empowerment when you make it your own, and it's part of your healing journey. Each time you choose something that you're choosing just for you, that you're not choosing in partnership, and you're like, I am picking this with no like filter of him or her in it. This is just me. Like, and then you own it. And then the next person that comes in your life, like, that again, like, is part of who you are.
Yeah.
And pay attention to your intuition as you're moving forward, whether you're going to agree to what you agreed to before, or if you're going to find someone that's, and I would hope, finding someone that's more in alignment with you and your space, and that loves your space, and that when they walk in, they can feel it, and is like, oh my God, can we hang out at your house? Like, that's the biggest thing. Like, if a guy says, I really love just being at your house, or a girl, whoever you're dating, I really love the energy there. Like, I just like feel good. Like, that's the biggest
Good
compliment
sign.
that I
That's
get.
a good sign. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. When I met my husband, I lived in New York actually when we met.
That's
And
awesome.
it was a really cool experience to sort of like rewild myself and get
Yeah.
close to nature. And it was a sublease. So it was like decked out like a priestess palace, like the
Oh
woman I
my
was
God.
renting it from. She had a circle bed. I mean, it was just, there was deities everywhere. And it was the space I needed to really step into myself and be able to like get like shake off all the challenges I had while living in LA, and like finally got to support myself and take care of myself and prove to myself like I could do it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And when he would come over, it was just so nice because he would say, like, I love your energy. I love being in your energy. And
Mm-hmm.
then he eventually wanted to move to Topanga, which was it's a total different experience. He was living in downtown LA, like in the
Right.
city, in a total different energy. And I told him straight up, like, I'm never going to be moving to downtown
Yeah.
LA, by the way. Like, that's not going to happen for me. So it was great to have that as a
Mm-hmm.
good sign, as a good indicator. And on another podcast, I talked to another woman who we were kind of talking about like signs that you found somebody that is aligned and in alignment with you. And I think that those are those little things that you really do want to pay attention to. Like, because we are in that first year or in that dating state, we forget. We were like, oh, yeah, I'm this person. This is who I am. And I think that
Yeah.
with the healing of what we're going through as women, like we're actually remembering to not let go of that.
Yeah.
Initially, it's like, let's keep who we are and bring ourselves fully. Like, I love that you have your dining room table right there, bold and loud, to show everyone who
Yeah.
you are, including the
Yeah.
men that you date or women. And
Mm-hmm.
it allows you to be like, this is who I am. I'm not changing. Like, don't try to
100%.
mold me. Don't try to shape me. This is who I am. Love me as I am. And, it
Mm-hmm.
goes vice versa too, right? Like the partner that we're
Yeah.
stepping into with, we have to feel that way as well with them. So,
Yeah, oh, for sure. I know I did. I had a relationship since my divorce where, like, I walked in and it was like, the energy in the place, like I just, so we always were at my place, right? And I like shut my intuition down so much. But once that relationship ended, and I was in it for 2 years, I realized, I was like, once I realized he was like cheating and there was all this, and he was into a lot of stuff that I was not into it. And the last time I went was at his house. We had broken up and gotten back together. We'd done that whole thing. And there were a lot of women that had been in his house since then. Of course, he didn't tell me. But when I tell you, I walked in there and I literally got this download. Like I could see everything. And he kind of knew I was a bit witchy. And I
Yeah.
was like, oh my God. And I was like, I started hyperventilating and I was like, I cannot be in this space. Oh my God. Like I could feel the energy so much. And, I realized as I healed, after that, looking back, like that was pretty early on that I didn't feel comfortable. It was pretty early on. I kept trying. It was like that square peg round hole. Cause again, like I thought like on paper and he was so hot and I was just like, no, I'm going to make this work, but every time I walked in his place,
Yeah.
no. And, pay attention. I'm glad that you said that the inverse, because it is important because they are infused in their space
Mhm.
and the energy of their friends, their past lovers, their who they are and who they've been is in there. And if you're sensitive, my guess is people that listen to your show are very sensitive to that energy. You're
Yeah.
going to feel it, and don't shut that down because that's who they're bringing with them towards you.
Especially when you decide to move in together.
Oh gosh. Yeah.
That's a big thing. And, more often than not now, I have clients who either they don't sleep together, they live together, don't sleep
Yeah.
together, or they've chosen to live separately.
Yeah.
Or I mean, it's just again, it's sort of that like knowing what our needs are as women and realizing that we actually have the privilege to ask and use our voices for those needs. I feel like that has been my biggest
Yeah.
lesson this year is really asking for what I need in my relationship and actually
Mm.
saying, "Hey, could you support us with like making breakfast this morning?" Or instead of taking on the role that I got to do everything and I've got to be the housewife, I've got to run my business, I've got to clean the house, I've got, like that. My mother, and we talk about this all the time. She's like, "I raised you to do that, to wake." She would wake up and make my dad sandwiches like at 4 a.m.
Yep.
But that's just like her nature to nurture and do everything. But what did that teach me? That I would just do the same thing. And so it's funny because even my girlfriends will be like, "Girl, we watch you like literally take like you do so much for your partner.
Mhm.
And what are you doing for yourself?" And that has
Mhm.
been like the initiation within because we're married 1 year now, together 7. And this has been
Mm.
the year for me, like really stepping into my, hey, I don't have time for that. Hey, I get to do this. Hey, because it's like it actually works better that way,
Oh,
because then I
so
get time
much.
to do what I need to do. And he is supporting that. And it's like the masculine really wants to do that. The true divine masculine wants to do that. And we, as our divine feminine power, speaking from our voice and from our gut and from the desires that we have and our purpose and our pleasure, we want that too, and that's the
Yeah,
dance.
it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful, and I'm right there with you. Same thing with my mom, and I'm the same way. Like food is my love language, but and I've heard you on several of your podcasts talk about make sure that the straightening and the decluttering, like you have the ritual that you do in the morning where but you involve him. And if you have kids, like that actually spoke to me because it's very simple, but often I'm like following behind everybody because it's the same. It's an itis. I'm sure there's a diagnosis for it that we have, like
Right.
crampitis. I don't know. Take it on all itis.
Yeah.
And so it's really important about
Superwomanitis.
what you said. Totally. It's so important what you said because it brings us back to that balance of the masculine and feminine. Because when we are taking it all on, and I'm in the same season of change in my life too, when we're taking it all on, we are actually not allowing that masculine to come in and be in service.
Mhm.
Women at their hearts want to be cherished, men want to be needed. Like that's two basic anthropological
It's
needs.
so easy.
So
Yeah. But we get it
when
complicated.
Yes, when men don't feel needed, because actually, when we're in that, it feels like we're in our feminine, but we're actually in our masculine. When we're doing and doing and doing, that's actually not in the feminine, even though it's a feminine role, it's a very masculine quality. So when we're managing and doing now, not that it's wrong because it serves you have both parts to you,
Yep.
but when it doesn't serve you is when then you're not balancing it because then what happens, and I watched my mom do it, and everybody, all the ancestors before us, there is an imbalance, and then resentment builds up, and
Yes.
that's what happens and brings
That's what
poisonous into the
brings,
marriage.
yeah, exactly. And it's hard to go backwards a little bit when you get start to think a certain way about your partner because and it's really actually self-induced a lot of times. like
Totally.
it's like, okay, I'm mad at you because you won't do
Right.
the thing, but I'm not asking you. So
Right. And you know, and there's no the expectations there because you've done it from the beginning. Like literally, like I had a friend tell me, like, don't pick their underwear up from the beginning. It's because then the expectation
why
is
are
going
we
to be
picking
there.
up their
Yeah.
socks? Like who
All the time. I
when did
know.
that become a thing? There was a meme that I just saw and it was like, ladies, who taught us to pick up their socks and underwear off the floor? Like when did that become a thing? Or they're out of deodorant and suddenly like it reappears the next day like it's refilled. Like and I mean,
Yeah.
let's all raise
Completely.
our hands here. Hello,
Yes.
we
Yeah.
should all be at this point.
Yeah.
We're guilty in some way, shape, or form. And
Yeah.
it's like, what is that? It's just this
Hmm.
natural desire. For me, it's like I need a clean space, a decluttered environment. So
Right.
yes, it doesn't always need to be perfect, but like also who taught them that it was okay to leave your freaking socks and stink
Well, because
around
their
the
moms are
floor?
probably picking them up for them and they didn't have to manage
Yes.
it, right?
So we as
It,
women, we gotta shift that story up because I ain't gonna pick your dirty laundry off the floor no more.
right.
It's
And it's
it
hard because it means it's and now, you know, when you have kids, it's a whole other thing too, right? Because now I'm doing it with my kids, with my son. I have two sons and a daughter, and I mean, and I have to fight it in my head. And then some days you're just like, well, they're not going to do it. Screw it. Like I'm just going to, you know, because I can't
yeah,
stand it.
totally.
And
I
it
mean,
is. And
a whole
I
nother
think
layer.
one of the, yes, so much of the important part of that is communicating, like you said, asking for
Mhm.
your needs to be met, because the issue is they're not mind readers. And again, they're repeating, they would learn that from their mom. And it's not that they don't value you or cherish you, although I think that's what we interpret it to be. We make that assumption. That's a learned behavior from them, because it's like they just expect the magician to walk in the room, which is the mom or the wife, and they've never had to. So I guess it's kind of no fault on them, right? But when you're speaking up about your needs and just saying, and it's uncomfortable, right? Because to say you want to share in it because you know you're probably going to do it better, right? Like
Of
they may
course.
not do it
Yeah.
right, but it's like,
That's
yeah,
the other problem. That's the other
yeah,
problem is I always like go after he does the
yeah,
dishes to like clean up the little areas that weren't done right in my but that's like that is also a recipe for resentment,
yeah.
you
It
know?
is, and you know, and it's like you said, the
It's
word dance is perfect. Like it's a dance. It is a dance, and I agree. So the beautiful part is like you're nurturing, right? There's a maternal energy in that to want to keep the space clean, organized. And men anthropologically are out in the field or whatever. Like, but we're not in that paradigm anymore. Like
yeah.
it's shifting because the
Yeah.
energy is different now, and
And
so
women,
there's
we work. We also pay the
yes,
bill. Like we also are stepping into more leadership roles. So
yeah,
we have to also ask because we don't we get to ask because we don't have the time
beautiful,
we used to, where
yeah,
we just sat at home and did all the vacuuming. And to be honest with you though, I really love playing that how I love playing that role. I
yeah,
love house cleaning, tidying, obviously, like that's my history.
yeah,
And so because I love it, I get engulfed in the joy of it. So for me, I'm a weirdo and I'm different in that regard. Not everybody likes that. Not everybody's into that stuff, but it's like for me, have to remember like stop, pause, let's go backwards here. Like is this something like is this what you get to be doing right now or could you get support with this? So it really just comes down to like communication,
mhm,
reprogramming those n- desires that are just sort of like on autopilot,
yeah,
the natural desire to vacuum, to sweep, to do those things. And like you said before with my rituals in the morning, that wasn't always that way.
yeah,
And also I wasn't always a feng shui student, educator, follower, devotee. So when we've been together for 7 years now. So it's
yeah,
like when we met, that wasn't a part of my curriculum within me. So I have
right,
evolved into this is important. This is way more important now. And I'm way
yeah,
more OCD about it now. So it's like he's had to also evolve with that with me. And so it's been an interesting, as we
mhm,
evolve in relationships, I think a lot of people will agree like you either evolve together or you evolve apart.
yep,
And I've met so many I mean, relationships, and they're not easy. Like they're the hardest things.
Oh,
You're
well,
on
they say if you want to know about yourself and you want to know what you need to work on, get in a
get in
relationship.
a
Because,
relationship.
and
It's
especially right now,
look
because
at
again,
yourself.
we're healing all that. And those of us that are operating in higher consciousness are processing all of that deep wounding. So I'm sorry that it's heavier for you, but it's because you're called at a higher level.
Yeah,
And if you choose to do that work, and the most beautiful thing is if you can
very
work
much.
on it together,
Mm,
it's we're healing so much. But
mm.
that whole thing about sharing in the home, it's like I never want to disregard like caretaking and clean because it can be very therapeutic, right? Like there's certain things that like I do like to do, but there are certain things I don't like to do. So it's like it's so simple. The answer is it's serving you until it's not. Like if it is serving you and it is therapeutic, but when it's not serving you is when you go into resentment. Like
Yeah,
that's the clicker. So if you're feeling that little sting in your gut and you silently in your head will be like, why can't you do it? Or it would be nice if somebody would help me. You're just going to walk by and watch TV. If
yeah,
you're doing that, then that's where it's like, all right, there's a way to say, here's what just happened. Here's what I just felt. Here's what I really need.
yeah.
And then in that feminine, sit back and know they may not do it right. Allow them to do it so that that can be start to be part of the natural flow in the relationship because it seeps into intimacy, it seeps into
Yeah,
finances, it's
yeah.
it's just part of the natural flow. It kind of like the way you do one thing you do others, like it will contribute to the other layers of your relationship.
Yeah, it turns out not taking out the trash bleeds into all these other things in a relationship.
It's amazing, right?
It is
And
wild.
another thing, and another
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
I know it is, and it's interesting because when you get down to it, like if you do go into that conversation, right, and then it becomes that rabbit hole when that stuff comes up, and then you get to really, it's something that happened maybe with your mom or your dad, and it makes you feel not loved, and this reminds you of something, and you know what? That person's not going to know that until you explain that. And the best time to explain that is if you can do it when there's a neutral space and you're not super heated about them watching the game instead of contributing to the Thanksgiving meal or whatever it is that brings up all the shit. If you and y'all are neutral can remember to that's the best time to bring it up and to just say, look,
Yeah.
I'm realizing like this when this happens, it brings me back to this. Here's what it's making me feel like. Like, don't blame them. There's this whole thing on nonviolent communication, which is all about stating, what you experience, number one, number two, what it made you feel like, what it's reminding you of. And it usually will bring you back to some wounding from a past relationship, which usually has to be
Yeah.
to do with wounding from childhood,
Yeah.
unhealed stuff. And
Yeah.
you're right, like the not taking out the trash, like there may have been we all have our stories, right? And so and if we can, when it's not in the moments of it being heated and being angry, find those times to sit and y'all can both hold space for each other and you can like that's the beauty. You can express it and you can do it in a way that's not blaming and that's not saying, that's owning, here's what it's bringing up for me and here's why. And then you offer, here's what I really need. And then you have to receive it or you get the choice, you get to receive it, right? And
Yeah.
again, it's going to float into every area of your life, and the home is the metaphor. I mean, that's, you say that, I mean, it just is.
Yeah.
It's the
It's
metaphor.
actually the place too where when I had my cleaning company previously, like I think so many people don't realize that they're not alone in how much the home life
Yeah.
really takes a toll on relationships because
Mm-hmm.
the time I would meet, I mean, we had a lot of big clientele, celebrity clients, and we'd have these women who were like, you could see it in their eye. I mean, my clients were exhausted. They're like,
Yeah.
the idea of wanting this giant house and having all the things, and then the reality of the maintaining of the space, the stress it's taken on relationships, and many ended up in divorce because this house was almost too much for it's too much responsibility. It changes
Mm.
people. It changes the dynamic of a relationship. And I think that if I were to give any advice around that, it would be to really discuss, like really get clear on what are your core values, on what you desire in life, how big of a space really is too much for you in that relationship. It's almost like when you get married, you don't talk about finances. Well, you also don't talk about like what's aligned for you in a home, like what is going to actually work for you. Because, we just moved out of a 4-bedroom space, kind of a perfect size, but definitely a
Yeah.
little too much space because over time, who was cleaning up everything, and then it was
Yeah.
like, okay, we're going to have a cleaner, but you have to think about all those things because all of those little things, the household daily things add up and they just tally up this board and put
Mhm.
stress on unneeded stress. Like there's ways to alleviate them. And the only way to do that is by communication, you know?
That's so I can speak to that so much because it's like I've lived in so many different spaces. And when I was married to the athlete, my ex-husband who became a professional baseball player, and we did have the giant celebrity home, and we were in the celebrity country club. And when he left and he went with the other woman, I stayed in the house, and there I was in this gigantic um place. And it was the loneliest I've ever been. It was the
Yeah.
loneliest I have ever been.
Yeah.
And when we were together, because there wasn't it became not a very unhealthy situation. There wasn't this giant space. And it's interesting because the gift I got out of that is I lived behind that velvet rope. And so it's an illusion when we think, and I'm glad you said that, you think these bigger spaces are going to bring you joy. And to be honest, like, I felt so lost in that space. And I know it's hard to find compassion for that, but I still work with a lot of celebrities because I have so much compassion for it, because I know how lonely you can feel. So I can promise you this:
Yeah.
I still have dreams that I walk in, that I'm in that house, and that there are rooms that I haven't found yet. Like, that's how, like, I literally was lost in that house. Like, I'm not even kidding. It's a
What
recurring dream that I have. And
what
then
a
I'm like, what the
beautiful.
hell?
Yeah.
And then, yeah. And but the dream is always about the anxiety that I haven't taken care of it. Right. Because I had this giant space, but then I had to fill it. And it's not obviously it's a whatever problem, but the amount of anxiety, and like you said, it caused so much strife in our relationship, because he was like, just do it. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't even know where to start. Like, there's so
Yeah.
much here. And then there were people coming all the time and entertaining. But my point is, I was the happiest when I moved into a little townhouse after that. And it had low ceilings. We had those like 20-foot ceilings in most of the house, and all the space. When I moved into my next space after that divorce, and it was a townhouse, and it had these cute little curved doorways. It was very feminine, like, all it was very French, and all the corners were rounded. And it just like held me in a
Yeah.
cocoon, and it was smaller. And I loved that the ceilings were down, and I didn't feel so like
Yeah,
I
tall
know, I
ceilings
know.
are not good feng shui actually if I were to be building a space because they actually take away from our like of our energy and our chi when we're in that space. It's almost too big. They actually say you want to have a smaller bedroom because the bedroom should be like the womb, like going back in the womb. So when there's vaulted
Mm.
ceilings, really tall ceilings, it can kind of take away from our energy.
I'm not even kidding. That's exactly how I felt. And it's like like I could never do enough. I just felt like because I couldn't expand that big. So you're right. Like,
Oh,
so it was like
yeah.
constantly, like, I didn't even know where it ended. And so the smaller space. So when I moved into this house after my divorce this time, it was, again, bigger house, a smaller house. Like, I love, and what's funny, when I lived in that big house, and I would go and visit my friends, because I was in my 20s, and there I was in this huge house married to a celebrity. And then I would go to their houses, and most of them were still in apartments or townhouses, and they weren't married yet. And they would always apologize when I walked in the door. I just want to drop this on you women.
Right.
Um, and I would always think when I walked in, and now in hindsight, I understand it more, but I always would think, don't apologize. Like, I loved how it felt going into their space, because it was that same thing. Like, I felt like I walked into this, like I just felt so taken care of. And so I told myself, if anything ever happens and I have to be in a small space, like, I'm not going to apologize for it, because there's something very nurturing about that. And it felt so good to me, especially when it felt like them and their vibe would get on me, because in my house, I felt so lost and not me. So it's funny, because I had forgotten about that. And when I moved again and downsized here, I caught myself apologizing when somebody from that life walked into this house, and I was like, oh, it's so small. And I literally remembered, I'm like, don't apologize for this space. Like, this is you 100%. And it is your energy that they're now going to be able to be surrounded with. And it's going to be a blessing for them. And so it was a reframe for me that kind of came full circle.
Yeah, well, the story that we're all sold in the American dream is
Yeah,
big house, the big car, the fancy this, and the part of the new like healing process and this new way of looking at life is that was all an illusion in the first place, you know.
totally.
So none of that's gonna, while those material things are great and fun to have, none of it's gonna bring us the happiness, the joy, the purpose that we're here to receive. So I think that it's a good story of just understanding, when you get to the top, like this idea of getting to the top or getting to that place is not real, be where you are, be with what you have. I I really love what you just said because right now I'm in this transition where we don't actually have a home. We're living between a
Yeah.
boat and a van.
Yeah.
And as a feng shui practitioner, I'm like, okay, this is an unpopular thing
Yeah.
that I'm doing, but it
Yeah.
brings me so much joy. And we have people that come into our van and like we don't really live in the van as much because that's just it's way too small. But we did do 2 months up north recently and they just come in, they're like, wow, this is so cool. Like what a vibe. Like people with giant motorhomes will come in and they're like this because
Yeah.
motorhomes they're in it's like sterile and it doesn't
Yeah.
have a character anywhere. So I
Yep.
kind of am learning now, like, no matter what you're doing, wherever you are, bring a piece of you. Like I'm in my podcasting room, like you're, in your new space. We can take parts of us wherever we go, whether you're traveling, doing a nomad life, whether you're staying in different Airbnbs. I'm the one fully guilty. I will move around furniture in an Airbnb to make it feel good for me.
I love
It
that.
doesn't
Yeah.
matter how long you're staying somewhere, how, like, I know that alternative lifestyle isn't for everyone. But I think at the core of it, it just comes down to loving what you have right here, right now. Because don't
Mm.
get me wrong, I want to build a home, I want to dream home, I want all those things. And I've had to really come back to myself. Like, this is what I
Yeah.
get to receive and be in right now. Because everything is
Yeah.
literally temporary.
It is. And, and the more things, I mean, I came up with this quote. I'm like, the more shit you got, the more shit you got to take care of. Not to bring the vibe down, but just to
Yeah,
simplify it,
no,
like
it's so true.
you really like things are going to break. And I just want to break the illusion. I'm saying that because like it is an illusion because with every new thing and everything, electronics have to be replaced. Fireplaces have to be cleaned. The stair, I mean, it is, there's so much that you then are responsible for. And it takes so much energy and the illusion of that what's really cool is I work with a lot of people that are going through awakenings. I love doing like being like a mentor, a soul guide through the awakening process. And 100% of the time, and I'm sure you talk about this a great deal, one of the layers is always simplification. And very often people, they just want to get rid of they just want to get rid of it, and
Yep.
they want to simplify. So even though they may be way up in the financial scale and they've come to this awakening through whatever life events, like they realize
Want
they
less.
really need, yeah,
Yeah.
it's a very natural part of the
Yep.
spiritual awakening phase, and it's
Yep.
shedding the excess because there's so much stress, like you said, and so much energy that outputs with the caretaking and the cleaning and the just redoing and all that simplification then, because it is it's a mirror to what's happening within you.
Mhm.
You're wanting to simplify your mind. You're wanting to get more quiet and more peace, and there's a lot of noise with a lot of stuff.
There
And
is.
so it is a natural progression. So if you are in a smaller space, like no apologies for it. That actually becomes the goal of people that have awakenings, to return
I
to
know,
those
it's
spaces,
so funny.
right?
Like it is really wild because it's like the grass is never greener.
Yeah.
We always want what we don't have. And again, it comes back to just being here in the now. And, just to kind of
Yeah.
like end this on this note, I think that when you become comfortable within yourself, within your temple, your body, your mind, your soul, you realize that like your home is that you are your
Yeah.
home. And when
You
you're so
are.
confident in that, when you're accepting of who you are, that's where you really start to see your external ecosystem flourish and change and grow and heal through relationships and trauma and all these things that life throws at us. But when we come back to ourselves, like creating a high frequency, creating a love for ourselves, creating that space, it's really beautiful because we're really the home. Like we can be wherever we are,
Mm,
and there we are.
I
You
love
know.
that.
So
The answer is always in the now. It always is. And it is. I mean, that's constantly what I'm teaching and doing myself. Source from within. So you are home, and we're all walking each other home. And when you're around high vibrational, highly conscious people, like that is what you're doing with each other, and that has to do with your environment and the ecosystem within you and your mind, body, heart, and soul. And God, when you find that, and I go in and out of it, right? Like I have good and bad days, right? We all
yeah,
do, but God, when you tap back into that and you are in your whatever spot it is, whether it's on a mountain, by a beach, whatever it is, in your meditation spot, in your little nook, like, and you find that source within you, which is in your DNA, and you realize like you are your own womb, you are your own home. It's like none of the labels matter, none of the things matter. It doesn't matter where you live on the outside. That internal peace is your home, and that's your natural state of being. That's why it's the highest level of consciousness: peace, joy, and love. And that has to start within yourself. for yourself.
Mm, yes, it does. Beautifully said. Well, on that note, I think we really landed on some great points. And thank you so much
Awesome.
for bringing in your wisdom and just insight on life and healing and your journey. And I think that there's going to be a lot of people that really resonate with, your story. And I think that that's really the beauty of podcasting is I just love listening to stories and, hearing
Yeah.
what people have gone through in life and connecting to that because we, like you said, we're all walking each other home and we're all here to heal, to grow, to become ourselves with each other, and listen to what people are going through, knowing we're not alone is so important. So thank you
Mm.
so much for coming on the show today.
Well, thank you so much. It was such
Honor.
a blessing. Thank you for allowing that to unfold. And I'm eager to hear what takeaways people have from it. So if there's anything that you want to say to me, you can find me, all over the things. It's Dr. Karin on Instagram and on Facebook. And, this kind of work that you're putting out in the world, I just really applaud you because it it simplifies something that feels really unattainable for people, and that walking them home through these simple steps really is our natural state of being because we overcomplicate it far, far too much. And you're meant to live in a simpler state. So thank you for having me on.
Yeah, we used to live in like teepees and huts and
Yeah, for
live
real.
with the earth. So no,
Yeah,
it's so fun
yeah.
now.
No fancy tents. We used to lay on the earth and it would heal us. You didn't have
Yeah.
to go and buy
Yeah.
the
We're like,
best
oh,
whatever,
there's
like
bugs
literally
now.
just the
And
earth.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So feels so good. Thank you,
Great
Car.
reminder.
So
Thank
good.
you.
So good. Yes. We'll make sure to put all the links to for those of you guys that want to explore more. Without further ado, thank you all for being here. Thank you for elevating your mind, your heart, your soul, and ultimately your home. And I will catch you all next week. And don't forget to check out the show notes to explore more of Karin's work. And we'll see you all soon. Bye for now.